Oakville, Iowa, nestled under a thick blanket of snow, buzzed with the excitement of Christmas Eve. The quaint Main Street, lined with twinkling lights and festive decorations, looked like a scene straight out of a holiday postcard. Shoppers hurried along the sidewalks, their arms laden with bags, as they made their final preparations for the big day. In a cozy brick house on Maple Avenue, Dorothea Finch peered out her frosted window, watching the flurries dance in the chilly air. At 68, her silver hair neatly pinned back and her kind eyes framed by laugh lines, Dorothea embodied the warmth of the season. She turned from the window, her gaze falling on Bear, her loyal pit bull, who lay curled up by the fireplace. "Well, Bear," she said, her voice filled with a mix of determination and resignation. "Looks like we can't put it off any longer. We've got some last-minute shopping to do." Bear's ears perked up at the sound of his name, and he lifted his head, his soulful brown eyes meeting Dorothea's. He let out a soft woof of agreement, his tail thumping against the hardwood floor. As Dorothea bustled about, gathering her purse and coat, her mind wandered to the day she had first met Bear. It had been just a few months ago, but it felt like they'd been together for years. The local animal shelter had been Dorothea's refuge in the months following her husband Frank's passing. Volunteering there gave her a sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed each morning when the silence in her home threatened to overwhelm her. She never intended to adopt. The thought of bringing a new life into her world of grief seemed impossible. But then she met Bear. He had been huddled in the corner of his kennel, his honey-colored coat dull and his eyes wary. The shelter worker had explained his background. Rescued from a fighting ring, passed over by countless potential adopters due to his breed and history. But when Dorothea knelt by his kennel, something in Bear's eyes spoke to her soul. "Hey there, big guy," she had whispered, extending her hand slowly. Bear had sniffed it cautiously before giving it a gentle lick. In that moment, Dorothea felt a spark of joy she thought she'd lost forever. The first few weeks with Bear had been an adjustment for both of them. Dorothea had to learn the routines of caring for a dog again. The early morning walks, the feeding schedules, the playtimes. Bear, in turn, had to learn to trust, to feel safe in a home where no one would hurt him. But as the days turned into weeks, something magical happened. The house that had felt so empty and silent after Frank's passing began to fill with life again. Bear's paws clicking on the hardwood floors, his contented sighs as he settled into his bed, the jingle of his collar as he trotted to greet Dorothea. All these sounds became a soothing symphony, chasing away the oppressive silence. Dorothea found herself talking to Bear throughout the day, sharing her thoughts and memories. She told him about Frank, about their whirlwind courtship, their adventures traveling across the country, the quiet moments they shared in their golden years. Bear would listen attentively, his head tilted to one side, occasionally offering a sympathetic whine or a comforting nuzzle. With Bear by her side, Dorothea rediscovered the simple joys of life. Their morning walks became a time of peaceful reflection, the crisp air and the rhythm of their steps clearing her mind. In the evenings, as she settled in her armchair with a book, Bear would curl up at her feet, his steady presence a comfort in the stillness of the night. Now, as Dorothea zipped up her coat and clipped Bear's leash to his collar, she marveled at how much her life had changed in just a few short months. The grief was still there, a dull ache in her heart, but it no longer consumed her. With Bear, she had found a new purpose, a reason to embrace each day with hope and love. "Ready to brave the Christmas Eve crowds, buddy?" Dorothea asked, scratching Bear behind the ears. He responded with an enthusiastic tail wag, clearly excited for their outing. Are you enjoying Dorothea and Bear's story? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales filled with love and inspiration. As they stepped out into the brisk winter air, Dorothea took a moment to admire the festive scene before her. The neighbors had outdone themselves this year. Every house on the street was adorned with twinkling lights, inflatable Santas, and colorful wreaths. Children's laughter echoed from a nearby yard, where a group of kids was engaged in an epic snowball fight. Dorothea and Bear made their way down the sidewalk, their breath visible in the frosty air. Bear walked confidently beside her, his muscular body a stark contrast to Dorothea's petite frame. As they passed by neighbors and other pedestrians, Dorothea noticed the mixed reactions Bear's presence elicited. Some smiled and waved, while others gave them a wide berth, eyeing Bear warily. "Don't mind them, sweetie," Dorothea murmured to Bear, patting his head reassuringly. "They just don't know what a big softy you are." The local supermarket, Oakville Grocery, came into view as they rounded the corner. The parking lot was a hive of activity, with cars circling like vultures, looking for any available spot. Shoppers hurried to and fro, their arms laden with bags, their faces a mix of determination and holiday stress. As they approached the store entrance, the automatic doors slid open, releasing a blast of warm air scented with cinnamon and pine. Christmas music drifted out, mingling with the sounds of squeaky shopping cart wheels and the beeping of cash registers. Dorothea paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to steel herself for the chaos that awaited inside. Bear looked up at her, his brown eyes full of trust and patience. "All right, Bear," she said with a smile. "Let's get this done so we can get back home where it's nice and warm." They entered the store, immediately enveloped by the hustle and bustle of last-minute shoppers. The aisles were packed with people grabbing forgotten ingredients and last-minute gifts. Dorothea navigated the crowd carefully, keeping Bear close to her side. As they made their way through the store, Dorothea couldn't help but notice the reactions Bear was drawing. Children pointed and whispered, their eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Some shoppers just avoided them, casting wary glances at the muscular pit bull. But others smiled, clearly charmed by Bear's gentle demeanor and the obvious bond between him and Dorothea. At the deli counter, as Dorothea waited for her number to be called, a little girl of about 5 or 6 approached them cautiously. Her mother hovered nearby, watching with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Can I pet your dog?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dorothea smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetie. His name is Bear, and he's very friendly. Just let him sniff your hand first, okay?" The girl nodded solemnly and held out her small hand. Bear sniffed it gently, then gave it a soft lick, causing the girl to giggle with delight. As she stroked Bear's head, her mother relaxed visibly. "He's beautiful," the mother said, stepping closer. "I've never seen a pit bull so calm in a busy place like this." Dorothea beamed with pride. "Bear's a special boy. He's been through a lot, but he's got a heart of gold." As they continued their shopping, Dorothea couldn't help but reflect on how Bear had not only changed her life, but was changing the perceptions of those around them. With each positive interaction, another small piece of the stigma surrounding his breed chipped away. They made their way through Dorothea's shopping list. A small turkey, just enough for her and some leftovers. Cranberry sauce, potatoes for mashing, and ingredients for her famous apple pie. It wasn't the grand feast she used to prepare when Frank was alive and the kids came home, but it would do. As she placed each item in her cart, Dorothea found herself looking forward to Christmas Day with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. At the checkout, the young cashier's eyes darted nervously between Dorothea and Bear. He's allowed in here?" she asked hesitantly. Dorothea smiled reassuringly. "Oh yes, dear. Bear's my registered emotional support animal. He goes everywhere with me." The girl relaxed visibly, even venturing a small smile. "He seems really sweet." "He is," Dorothea agreed, her voice filled with affection. "The sweetest soul you'll ever meet." As they exited the store, the temperature seemed to have dropped even further. Dorothea pulled her scarf tighter around her neck, her breath forming small clouds in the air. Bear pressed closer to her side, as if trying to share his warmth. The parking lot had emptied somewhat, with only a few cars remaining. Dorothea's old station wagon sat at the far end, its faded blue paint barely visible under a light dusting of snow. She fumbled with her keys, her fingers stiff from the cold, as Bear waited patiently beside her. Just as she managed to unlock the car, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck made her pause. Years of city living had honed her instincts, and right now, they were telling her something wasn't right. She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the dimly lit parking lot. That's when she saw them. Two young men, barely more than boys really, were approaching from between the parked cars. Their hoodies were pulled low over their faces, hands shoved deep in their pockets. They moved with a purposeful stride that sent alarm bells ringing in Dorothea's mind. Bear sensed it too. His ears perked up, and a low, almost imperceptible growl rumbled in his chest. Dorothea's heart began to race, her mind frantically assessing her options. The supermarket entrance seemed miles away, and there wasn't another soul in sight. As the two figures drew nearer, Dorothea could make out their features. One was tall and lanky, with a wispy attempt at a beard. The other was shorter, stockier, with a face that might have been handsome if not for the hard set of his jaw and the cold look in his eyes. They were just a few feet away now. Dorothea's hand tightened on Bear's leash, her other clutching her purse close to her body. The air seemed to crackle with tension, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still in the snow-covered parking lot. The tension in the air snapped like a rubber band as the taller of the two young men suddenly lunged forward. His hands, emerging from his pockets, roughly shoved Dorothea. The force of the push, combined with the slick snow beneath her feet, sent her tumbling backwards. She hit the ground with a soft thud, her shopping bags scattering around her, their contents spilling onto the snow-covered asphalt. "Give me your purse, old lady," the shorter one snarled, his voice cracking with a mix of bravado and fear. Dorothea lay there, stunned, the cold of the snow seeping through her coat. Her mind raced, trying to process what was happening. In that moment, she felt every bit of her 68 years, vulnerable and alone in the dimly lit parking lot. A few yards away, a young couple loading groceries into their car froze at the scene unfolding before them. The woman's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Her partner fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed 911. The taller assailant, emboldened by their initial success, reached for Dorothea's purse. "Hurry up, Liam," he hissed to his accomplice. "Grab it and let's go." But before Liam could make a move, a low, menacing growl cut through the crisp night air. Bear, who had been momentarily startled by Dorothea's fall, now stood between her and the attackers. His muscular body was tense, hackles raised, and his usually gentle eyes blazed with a fierce protectiveness. The sudden transformation in Bear's demeanor caught everyone off guard. The two young men stumbled back a step, exchanging nervous glances. This wasn't part of their plan. They'd seen the old lady with her dog and thought it would be an easy score. But the pit bull before them now looked anything but easy to handle. "Zizak," Liam stammered, his earlier bravado evaporating. "Maybe we should just go." But Zach, the taller one, wasn't ready to give up so easily. His face contorted with a mix of fear and determination as he took a step forward, trying to circle around Bear to get to Dorothea's purse. It was a mistake. With a speed that belied his size, Bear lunged at Zach. His powerful jaws clamped down on the young man's leg, not breaking the skin, but gripping with enough force to make Zach howl in pain and surprise. With a quick jerk of his head, Bear sent Zach sprawling onto the snowy pavement. The parking lot erupted into chaos. Liam, panicking at the sight of his friend on the ground, tried to make a run for it. But Bear, still keeping himself between the attackers and Dorothea, darted to block his path. Liam skidded to a halt, nearly losing his balance on the slick surface. By now, more people had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Phones were out, some calling for help, others recording the unfolding drama. A chorus of shocked gasps and murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. "Oh my God, did you see that? That dog just took down that guy." Someone call the police. Dorothea, still on the ground, watched the scene unfold with a mixture of fear and awe. Her gentle Bear, the dog who cuddled with her on the couch and played so gently with neighborhood children, had transformed into a fierce protector. Despite the cold seeping into her bones from the snow, A warm feeling of gratitude and love spread through her chest. Zach scrambled to his feet, limping and cursing. He looked wildly around, seeking an escape route, but Bear's vigilant presence and the gathering crowd had effectively trapped him and Liam in the small area near Dorothea's car. "This is crazy, man," Liam cried, his voice cracking. "I didn't sign up for this." The wail of approaching sirens cut through the night air, growing louder by the second. Relief washed over Dorothea as she realized help was on the way. Bear, hearing the sirens, relaxed slightly but maintained his protective stance, his eyes never leaving the two would-be robbers. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, their red and blue lights casting an eerie glow over the snowy scene. Officers quickly emerged, hands on their holsters as they assessed the situation. "Everyone stay where you are," one officer commanded, his voice firm but calm. As the police approached, Bear looked to Dorothea for guidance. With a gentle word from her, he stood down, moving to sit protectively by her side. The officers, seeing that the immediate threat was contained, moved to help Dorothea to her feet. "Are you all right, ma'am?" a female officer asked, her voice filled with concern as she helped brush snow from Dorothea's coat. Dorothea nodded, her voice shaky but growing stronger. "Yes, thanks to Bear here. He saved me." The officer smiled, giving Bear an appreciative look. "Looks like you've got quite the hero there." As one set of officers tended to Dorothea, others moved to apprehend Zach and Liam. The fight had gone out of the young men, and they submitted to the arrest without resistance, looking more like scared boys than the tough criminals they had tried to be. While statements were being taken and the scene secured, the crowd that had gathered began to disperse, but not before many of them approached Dorothea to express their amazement and admiration for Bear's bravery. "That's some dog you've got there, ma'am," said a burly man in a plaid coat, tipping his hat to Dorothea. A young mother, holding her child close, added, "I've never seen anything like it. You must be so proud." Dorothea felt a lump form in her throat as she looked down at Bear, who was now calmly sitting by her side, as if he hadn't just single-handedly foiled a robbery attempt. She knelt down, ignoring the protest in her knees, and wrapped her arms around Bear's thick neck. "Oh, Bear," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "What would I do without you?" Bear responded by nuzzling into her embrace, his tail wagging gently, as if to say, "I'll always be here for you." As the excitement died down and the police finished their work, Dorothea found herself suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been coursing through her veins was wearing off, leaving her feeling every one of her 68 years. A kind officer helped her gather her scattered groceries, many of the items miraculously unharmed despite their tumble onto the snowy pavement. As Dorothea prepared to leave, the female officer who had first checked on her approached again. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say, your dog is really something special," she said, her eyes warm with admiration. "We see a lot of bad stuff in this job, but moments like this, well, they remind us of the good in the world." Dorothea smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Thank you, officer. Bear is indeed special. He's more than just a pet. He's family." With final thanks to the police and a few more pats on the back from lingering onlookers, Dorothea and Bear made their way to their car. As she settled into the driver's seat, Bear taking his usual spot in the back, Dorothea let out a long, shaky breath. The drive home was quiet, the streets of Oakville nearly empty as most residents were already tucked away in their homes, preparing for Christmas morning. Twinkling lights from decorated houses cast a warm glow on the snowy sidewalks, a stark contrast to the harsh glare of the police lights they'd left behind. As they pulled into the driveway of their cozy brick house, Dorothea felt a wave of relief wash over her. Home. Safe. Together. Inside, the warmth of the house enveloped them like a comforting hug. Dorothea moved on autopilot, hanging up her coat and putting away the groceries. Bear followed her from room to room, never more than a few feet away, as if he sensed she needed his presence more than ever. Finally, with everything put away, Dorothea sank into her favorite armchair by the fireplace. Bear immediately came to rest his head on her lap, his brown eyes looking up at her with unwavering devotion. As she stroked his soft fur, Dorothea's mind wandered back to the day she had adopted Bear. She remembered the shelter worker's words. "Most folks pass him by, but he's got a heart of gold." How right they had been. "You know, Bear," Dorothea said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "when I brought you home, I thought I was the one saving you. But tonight you saved me." Bear's tail thumped gently against the floor, his eyes never leaving Dorothea's face. "I used to think I was too old for new beginnings," she continued, a small smile playing on her lips. "But you proved me wrong. You've brought so much joy into my life. And now, well, now you've made sure I'll be around to enjoy many more Christmases with you." As if understanding every word, Bear lifted his head and gently licked Dorothea's hand. She chuckled softly, the last of the evening's tension melting away. The clock on the mantel chimed midnight, officially marking the start of Christmas Day. Dorothea looked around her living room, at the modest decorations she had put up with Bear's help a few weeks ago. The small tree in the corner, adorned with a lifetime of ornaments, each holding a precious memory. The stockings hanging from the fireplace, one for her, and a new one she had bought for Bear. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of her home and the love of her faithful companion, Dorothea felt a profound sense of gratitude. This Christmas Eve had not gone as planned, but it had reaffirmed what truly mattered in life: love, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a woman and her dog. "Merry Christmas, Bear," Dorothea murmured, leaning down to place a gentle kiss on top of his head. Bear responded with a soft, contented sigh, settling in closer to Dorothea. As the fire crackled in the hearth and the snow continued to fall gently outside, Dorothea and Bear drifted off to sleep, safe in the knowledge that they had each other, not just for this Christmas, but for all the days to come. The next morning, Dorothea awoke to the sound of her phone ringing. Still groggy from the previous night's excitement, she fumbled for the receiver, Bear lifting his head from her lap with a curious tilt. "Hello?" she answered, her voice still thick with sleep. "Mom, are you okay? We just saw the news." The concerned voice of her daughter Sarah came through the line, tinged with worry and a hint of panic. Dorothea sat up straighter, suddenly wide awake. "The news? What do you mean, dear?" As Sarah explained, Dorothea's eyes widened in surprise. The incident in the parking lot had made the local morning news. Amateur video footage taken by one of the bystanders had captured Bear's heroic act, and the story had quickly spread. "Oh my," Dorothea breathed, looking down at Bear, who was now fully alert and watching her intently. "I had no idea it would make the news." "Mom, why didn't you call us?" Sarah's voice was a mix of relief and gentle admonishment. "We would have come right away." Dorothea smiled softly. "Honey, it all happened so fast, and then I was just so tired. But I'm fine, really, thanks to Bear here." As she recounted the events of the previous night to her daughter, Dorothea could hear the mixture of awe and gratitude in Sarah's voice. "Mom, I always knew adopting Bear was a good idea, but this is amazing. He's a true hero." After reassuring Sarah once more that she was indeed okay and promising to call her siblings to update them, Dorothea hung up the phone. She turned to Bear, who was watching her with his head tilted to one side, as if trying to understand the conversation. "Well, Bear," she said with a chuckle, "it looks like you're famous now." As the day progressed, Dorothea's phone kept ringing. Friends, neighbors, and even people she barely knew called to check on her and express their admiration for Bear. Each time she retold the story, Dorothea felt a renewed sense of amazement at Bear's bravery. Mid-morning, there was a knock at the door. Bear's ears perked up, but his tail wagged in a friendly manner, sensing no threat. Dorothea opened the door to find Officer Jenkins. the kind policewoman from the night before, standing on her porch with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Finch," she said. "I hope I'm not intruding, but I wanted to check in and see how you and your hero were doing." Dorothea welcomed her in, touched by the officer's thoughtfulness. As they sat in the living room, Bear positioning himself protectively at Dorothea's feet, Officer Jenkins explained that the two young men, Zach and Liam, had confessed to a string of similar robberies in the area. "Thanks to you and Bear," she said, her eyes shining with admiration. "We've been able to solve several open cases. You've made our community safer." As Officer Jenkins prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "Mrs. Finch, the department would like to honor Bear for his bravery. We're thinking of a small ceremony, if you're comfortable with that. It might help change some minds about pit bulls, too." Dorothea felt a lump form in her throat. She looked down at Bear, who gazed back at her with those soulful brown eyes. "What do you think, boy? Ready to show everyone what a true hero looks like?" Bear's tail thumped against the floor in response, bringing a smile to both women's faces. As the day wore on, Dorothea found herself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought her and Bear together. From the lonely widow who had volunteered at the shelter to distract herself from her grief, to the confident woman who now stood tall, knowing she had a loyal protector by her side. That evening, as Dorothea and Bear settled in for a quiet Christmas dinner, turkey for her, a special bone for him, she raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings, unexpected heroes, and the power of love," she said softly. Bear looked up from his bone, his eyes meeting hers with an understanding that went beyond words. As the fire crackled in the hearth and the Christmas lights twinkled on the tree, Dorothea felt a profound sense of peace. This Christmas hadn't gone as planned, but it had given her something far more precious than any gift under the tree. It had reaffirmed her faith in second chances, in the goodness that could be found in unexpected places, and in the unbreakable bond between a woman and the dog who had not only saved her life, but had given her a new reason to live.